This is episode 437 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abuel-Samad from Telemetry, and I even remembered the number this time.
I was so proud of you. I was getting ready to look to see so I could be like whatever.
As it was counting down, I looked down at the tab on the rundown and double-checked and realized, yep, it is 437.
Well done, Sam. And I am Nicole Wakelin, and we're going to say with testmiles.com because I started working with Test Miles in the last couple of weeks.
Excellent.
We're doing a lot of stuff over there. Yeah, I'm excited to be working with that crew. That should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, Nick is great. We love Nick Miles.
He is fabulous. I'm working pretty closely with Nick to do some cool stuff over on Test Miles. So, yeah.
Okay. And sadly, Robbie pinged us about 15 minutes ago. He is laid up with a migraine right now, so he's not going to join us today.
So it's the Nicole and Sam show.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
So what have you been doing this week, Nicole?
I did a lot of stuff this week, most of which I don't think I can talk. Can I talk about it yet? I don't think half the things I did I can talk about. I was traveling to drive Honda stuff. I think all the embargoes are this week. So
videos have been posted of walkarounds and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so we know
so it's
a new Honda Pilot is out there, actually refreshed Honda Pilot mid-cycle refresh, and
so yeah,
the Prelude.
Let me see. I'm just seeing what the official. Yeah, drive impressions are still embargoed. I had to double check,
which is
weird
odd because
I know
we got to drive it in Japan in October,
right? And I actually drove the Prelude back in when we did the NACTOY test drives, but Pilot is embargoed,
maybe you're only
and so is Prelude.
Not talk about what it's like to drive in California.
I don't know. It's very weird. Embargoed. So first drive impressions are embargoed. I mean,
did you drive any of the old Preludes that they had?
They did. I didn't drive them. I didn't have a chance to, but yeah, they did have all the old Preludes there, and it was awesome to even see them because I learned how to drive a stick shift on a manual Prelude back in the 90s, and they had that generation there, and I was like, I almost got a little twitchy. I was like, oh God, because it was so scary to learn how to do that. I was like, I'm like, no, you know how to drive one now. But the one I drove was a friend's husband's car, and it had the pop-up headlights, and I was so panicked with gear shift, turn signals, whatever. I kept hitting the pop-up headlights. So we're like driving and I was like, blink, 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 blink. I'm like, I'm going to get arrested. But so they did have the old generations there, which was really fun. It was just neat to see and to see everyone sort of reminiscing about the prior versions of the Prelude versus the new. And I love, in terms of how it looks, I love how the new Prelude looks. You've driven it too. What did you think?
Yeah.
I think the style is super cute, and they gave us all blue ones, whatever the really bright blue is. So lined up outside, it was just like 10 of these brilliant blue Preludes all staged in a little row. So it's really pretty. I like the bright blue cars. So it was a good looking car.
Well, since I wasn't on this program and I wasn't under this embargo, and I already published something back in November.
Okay. There you go.
I will say that I very much enjoyed driving the Prelude, despite the fact that you can't get it with a manual transmission.
Yes.
I thought it was really, really good, and I do. I mean, I've loved the way it looked ever since I saw it in 2023 at the Japan Mobility Show, where they first showed it as a concept, and then they brought it over to the LA show, and they've showed it at the various U.S. shows since then. I think it's really good. The price, as is the case with most stuff today, is on the high side. But if you do the price, if you go back and look at the pricing from the 90s and early 2000s and look at the rate of inflation, it's actually priced about comparably to those. Some people complain that, it's a hybrid, it doesn't have the performance. The Prelude was never a high performance sports car anyway. It was.
I agree with you. That was the thing. And again, not saying anything about what I thought about how this one drove, but in terms of like, guys, this isn't powerful. Neither was the old one. Like that wasn't, I think people have this nostalgia about what the old Prelude was, and it wasn't this like pocket rocket of a car. So I think
it was never a Type R.
No. And they have the Type R, and they made a good point about saying during the presentation, if you want that, go for a Civic Type R. That's not what this is supposed to be. This is like a Grand Tour kind of thing. This is.
Although it has the suspension and brakes from the Civic Type R.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is based on a Civic platform.
Yep.
It uses the same powertrain that's in the Civic Hybrid right now. So just saying that, if you wanted to go get a Prelude and get a Type R crate engine, which you can buy from Honda, you can buy the Type R engine and transmission as a crate engine. I'm just saying, when it gets around to SEMA next November, I would be shocked if there isn't at least one Prelude with a Type R engine and a 6-speed manual transmission.
I'd be amazed if people don't start playing around with this. And it does have, what this does debut is the first time that they have the Shift Plus button. I think it's Shift Plus is what it's called, which it makes it, the idea is that it will make it, try not to give drive impressions, feel like you have a car that's shifting and has that same sensation. And it's the first time. So if you want that, you have to get this car.
And it's a very similar concept to the Honda or the Hyundai Ioniq 5N,
yes,
and 6N, and it makes you giggle in those cars, and it does in this car too. Like I say, I'm not under embargo. I can say whatever I want.
I'm working very hard to say things and features and not say drive impressions, not say what I think. No impressions about what I think. That I can tell you next week.
We'll get your impressions whether you love it or hate it next week.
Very weird because, like you said, we could talk about it now. I can't because I was just on the drive.
And for the record, that blue is called Boost Blue Pearl.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. It's exactly the kind of color you want. You know what? Like little fun cars look. They need Skittlesy colors, and that's what this is. This is a really fun color. I like it. I think it looks great. And I like the style on this. And that hatchback has so much room back there.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy how much room it is. You don't, you
really,
got to open it up to see it.
Fold down the back seats, leave them down, never touch them again, and you've got a huge amount of cargo space back there.
You have a huge amount of cargo room.
Yes. You and your best mate, partner, spouse, whatever,
significant other,
you can load up your stuff and go for a weekend getaway and have a blast.
So I drove that, and I also drove the Honda Pilot, which again is also under embargo. That was just a refresh, so not as significantly changed, but I will talk about both of those next week, not now because I can't.
Okay.
So I can't say anything.
So what can you talk about?
I can talk about the Toyota Prius that I drove this week.
Okay.
Woohoo!
That's not, hey, the current generation Prius.
Actually,
I don't mind talking about it.
No, and it's funny. So I drove this back and forth to Boston, drove it down to Burlington, so I had a good amount of drive time in this thing, and it was funny as we were putting cars in the garages. We're getting 2 feet of snow where I am in New England. It literally has just started 2 feet, which is insane. Sometimes, like when it's a little bit of snow, we'll leave the cars in the driveway or whatever. No, we rearrange both my car and the press car. The press car is in the garage. Russ's car is in the garage. And this morning when we went out, he said, well, I better take my car. We can't take the Prius. I said, actually, as a matter of fact, the Prius has all-wheel drive. So we could take the Prius. It's not going to be like we're going to have 2 feet of snow like that. It can handle it. So it does have all-wheel drive. And I did drive it in some of the snow that we had this week, and it was great, which is, it's kind of funny. You don't think about a vehicle like the Prius as being something you'd want to have in the winter. And no, it's not what you want to drive through actually 2 feet of snow. But if you have to go out afterwards or when it first starts.
It doesn't have 2 feet of ground clearance.
It doesn't have the ground clearance.
Yeah.
But in terms of just being able to manage snowy weather, it can do that. And I did drive through some snowy weather and it was totally fine, which is pretty impressive because there's a time you wouldn't have thought that at all about this vehicle. But the thing that its hallmark is, you get great fuel economy. The official EPA figures, 49 city, 50 highway, 49 combined. I've been doing a mix of highway and city, and I think I've been averaging about 47. So not too bad. It's also really cold, and, driving through some snow. That affects your fuel economy, blah, blah, blah. But it's been doing great. I've enjoyed driving it. I can't believe I'm saying that. I enjoyed driving it. I once upon a time really didn't like the Prius. I remember driving one many years ago, many years ago. And I thought it always sounded like the engine was just going to explode and go like shooting through the hood. It did not sound good. It sounded really bad. Sam, you remember the old Prius?
Oh, yeah.
It sounded terrible. It didn't feel especially responsive. And it kind of made me, I'll be honest, it kind of made me a Prius hater. At that time, I'm like, I hate this thing. And my brain is still stuck on that. And then I'm driving this, I'm like, actually, I don't hate this. I even like this. And it's such a shift because in my mind, I still see a Prius in my driveway. My brain wants to remember that old Prius. It's not that car anymore. It really is nice. So I thought about how, people talk about Hyundai and Kia and how, oh, they aren't good cars. And we're always trying to disabuse them of that notion because they are good cars now. I have to disabuse myself of the notion that the Prius is still like an awful car to drive. I enjoyed driving this. I really did enjoy driving it. It was responsive. It's comfortable. It's, the interior quality. I had the limited trim. Interior features and the quality is nice. You don't feel like you're in a cheap car, and it's not especially cheap. So this was, let me see here, 39,000. Trying to read this, it's really faded. $39,075. Sam, you're gonna win, but you want to take a guess on the destination?
Ooh, I'm gonna say $1,295.
You're off by 100. $1,195.
Oh, 1,000. No, 100.
What?
Yes, never mind.
Okay.
Can't do math this morning.
Wait, I'm like, I think I did it right, but he's the engineer and I should just trust him, but not this time.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Up by $100.
So you're looking at about $40,000 for this car. So it's not the world's cheapest car, but given the price,
So that's got to be
cars,
like the top trim level.
Limit. Yeah, it's the Limited is higher on the. In fact, the Limited might be the highest trim in the lineup. I'm not sure, but it's, let's see. Limited, the base LE. If you go down the list, the LE starts at 28,000.
Okay.
So you can get this for significantly less. You're just losing some of the features and things that you get, like you don't have the fancy alloy wheels, and there's heated and ventilated seats in this one. So you get the upscale stuff that you kind of lose. But it's you're not and even this, you even have the, like, you can do the Hey Toyota thing. So you can say, hey, Toyota, where's the nearest whatever? And I do have to say that of the voice recognition systems, I happen to find the Toyota ones to be one of the best ones in terms of it hears you, and it hears you right on the first try. You're not repeating yourself as it randomly just like, oh, I'm going to send you to the gas station. Great. I asked for the hospital. Like it tends to hear you right the first try and send you where you want to go, which I appreciate. So I enjoyed driving it. Horsepower, let's see if I can get some facts and figures here. So it has a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. I don't have the horsepower right in front of me. I did, and I just accidentally closed my page. So let me open it back up.
It's like 190 something. I think.
Yeah, it's not especially powerful. But again, it's enough. When you think about the fuel economy that you're getting in this, and you think about how it drives really nicely. You're not gonna feel like you're sacrificing. If you want a sports car, not your thing, but you're also not gonna get this kind of fuel economy in a sports car, So I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the Prius. Things that, like, Nicole of 8 years ago is like, I can't believe you're saying this. But I really did. I enjoyed driving this, and I think the Prius is a great car. Where its challenge is a little bit the price, although you can get the lower trims for a better price.
I mean, for this generation of Prius, when Toyota launched this one a couple of years ago, they kind of changed their product strategy a little bit, because they went from, prior Priuses were always kind of boring to look at, to say the least.
Right.
And, They also had the Corolla hybrid with the same powertrain in it that was available, and so you had these two vehicles in the lineup that were kind of competing with each other. So what they did was, they made it more stylish. They gave the Prius a little more power. They went from a 1.8 to a 2-liter engine,
and it's 196.
And it got a little more expensive because the prior generation Prius, you could get it starting at about $22,000, $23,000, and so they bumped the price up, made it a little more stylish, and but if you want essentially this close to the same powertrain, but at a lower price point, they've got the Corolla hybrid.
Exactly,
and that starts at under $25,000.
It's a change in the mix, which they needed to do, because once upon a time with Prius, when people first thought hybrids. That once upon a time it was like you thought Prius. That was the hybrid. That was the only thing out there. And that's what everybody thought of. Well, now there's a million hybrids out there. Like, just being a hybrid is not enough to make the car special.
And now, in 2026, every single vehicle in the Toyota lineup in the United States is available with a hybrid as either optional or standard equipment. Every model, from the Corolla all the way up to the Tundra and Sequoia.
So there had to be a way to, you had to do something to make the Prius relevant still. in the lineup. It doesn't, driving a Prius isn't like, oh, I have the best fuel economy on the planet anymore. Everybody else gets tired. No, there's a lot of things that can do this. So I think it was a good move for them. I think it was a nice shift, and it makes the Prius relevant. And I really, truly enjoy driving it. I'm not taking it out when the snow really starts going today, because I think we already have an inch on the ground since we've been talking. But yeah, it's a good vehicle.
Well, you guys have the Wrangler, for
we
that.
have the Wrangler to get us through that. Yeah, that's what's going to get us through if we need to go out. Hopefully we don't. If we planned correctly, we will not need to go out until after this pass, because it's going to be a lot of snow really fast.
So, one of the complaints with earlier Priuses was with performance in snow, especially with the traction control, because, they often, the way the system worked, it basically, when you got in some snow, it would just basically cut all the power, and you couldn't go anywhere with the traction control.
Yeah.
And so how did this one work for you?
We probably had, when I was out there driving, it was maybe 2 inches of snow that was on the roads. Snowy, a little bit slushy. Some spots it was a little bit more like 2 inches of squished up snow. It was fine. Like, that's the thing. Like, as I was driving, I never felt the wheels. They weren't spinning. I didn't feel like I was losing traction and doing that. Like, you're not really fishtailing, but when you're not going straight anymore, you're going like a drunken kind of line forward, like you're wiggling back and forth because you're not quite getting
the
traction.
tires are scrambling to try and get some grip somewhere.
And you have that wiggly kind of thing, like, going a little left, little right, little left, little right. No, it doesn't do that. It was really good. So I think for your average day-to-day driving in snow, it was fine. I had absolutely no complaints about it. And like you said, it doesn't have the ground clearance to handle the kind of snow that we're about to get, but very few things do.
That's true of any car.
Any car, any sedan.
Or for that matter, for most crossovers.
Right?
Most crossovers don't have that kind of ground clearance.
To handle this kind of stuff, you literally have to have an SUV, because it's just going to be too deep, especially when you get to the snowbanks. So, but in terms of cars, sedans, I'd have no problem driving this in the snow. I think it's going to handle it as well as any of them.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So I was pleased with this. So thumbs up. Good job, Toyota.
Awesome. Have you ever searched for yourself online? I do it because in the work I do as an industry analyst and journalist, I have to maintain my credibility and can't afford to have it damaged by bad actors that are abusing my data. You'd be surprised and upset about what you can find about yourself online. Your phone number, home address, even details about your family are out there, whether you agreed to it or not. That's because data brokers are collecting and selling your information to marketers, scammers, and basically anyone willing to pay. It's the reason robocallers know your name and why ads seem to track you across every screen. Aura fights back. They remove your personal data from broker sites and keep it off. Aura also alerts you fast if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura does more than just cleaning up your data from brokers. It's a full suite of digital security tools that protects every part of your life online. Aura gives you a VPN to stay private, antivirus to block threats, and a password manager to keep your logins safe, and spam call protection to cut off the scammers. Aura also scans the dark web for your most sensitive information, like your social security number, bank logins, and passwords, and notifies you instantly if they are exposed. And if your identity is ever stolen, you're backed up by up to $5 million in insurance and a 24/7 U.S.-based fraud support to help you recover it quickly. Other services charge about the same, but they only cover one or two areas. With Aura, you get it all: data broker removal, credit and identity monitoring, device protection, and fraud support, all in one simple app. Aura cleans up what's already out there, protects what isn't, and puts you back in control. Right now, you can try Aura free for 14 days when you visit aura.com/remove. That's enough time for Aura to start removing your personal information from data broker sites. Sign up today at aura.com/remove and get the peace of mind that your privacy, identity, and finances are safeguarded. That's aura.com/remove. Certain terms apply. See the site for details.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. New Year's resolutions are weird. Change this, start doing that. A new gym membership? No. The reality is, if you're like me, real change that helps me day to day comes from finding tools to help me better interact with friends, family, and work, and just deal with my general anxiety. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the world at large, and the pressure to make some big changes doesn't help. What has helped me navigate an increasingly complex world is talking to a therapist. To help you find someone to talk to, BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Getting started is easy. BetterHelp does the initial matching work so you can focus on your therapy goals. They have a short questionnaire that helps you identify your needs and preferences, and with over 12 years experience, they're going to help you find somebody. That means they typically get it right the first time, and well, this next part is very important. If you aren't happy with your initial match, you can switch. You can switch to another of BetterHelp's over 30,000 therapists at any time. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com. That's better, HELP.com.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. Well, I had the Cadillac Lyriq Sport all-wheel drive. Actually, let me double check. It is the Lyriq Signature Sport.
Ooh.
Which is, Cadillac, they have this kind of Y strategy for all their models. They have the base model, and then they have the sport and the luxury trims that kind of branch off, and then a couple of variations within each of those. So this is the top of the sport branch. So this one was finished in vibrant white tricoat, which, after 5 minutes of driving on the salted roads, just kind of looked grungy. Not particularly vibrant, but
or white.
Hey, it's January in Michigan. What are you going to do? Well, it still looked, whitish.
Yeah.
But kind of
everything's filthy
grungy
this
white
time of year. Yeah, it gets dirty in 2 seconds. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and had the noir interior with Santorini blue accents, which looked really, really nice. So I like the Lyriq. I was fortunate enough to drive it for the first time back in 2022 when they did the original launch program. Driving it then, the driving experience was really good. The software at that time was not. It was pretty fundamentally broken. But they spent a lot of time working on that. I had no issues with software on this one.
Nice.
This one was the all-wheel drive, so it's a dual motor. And over time, Cadillac has gradually bumped up the power output on these things. So when it launched originally just as a rear-wheel drive single motor, and at the time had 325 horsepower. That one now has 365 horsepower, and the all-wheel drive, the dual-motor all-wheel drive, has gone from 500 to 515 horsepower. And then, of course, there's also the Lyriq V, which has, I think, 615 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
But even with 515, this is a quick enough car for anybody. Interestingly, the range. So the range has also gone up, even though power's gotten better. When it started off, that original rear-wheel drive one was 300 miles of rated range. It's now 326. And then for the all-wheel drive, they've got two different range numbers. With the base configuration, you get an 11.5 kilowatt onboard AC charger. So for charging at home, you can charge at 11.5 kilowatts, which is pretty quick. And for home use is actually probably, it's more than sufficient. Even if you have a completely dead battery, you'll be able to charge it overnight, in probably about 8 hours on 11.5 kilowatts. And it's 102 kilowatt hour battery. usable range. When you get that one, you get 319 miles of range with the dual motor all-wheel drive. Interestingly, there's also an optional 19.2 kilowatt onboard charger. And of course, to make the most use of that, you've got to have a 19 kilowatt charger at home, which means, that's 80 amps. So you got to have that on a 100 amp circuit, which most people, are probably not going to have an available 100 amp circuit to use to get that full 19 kilowatts.
Right.
But if you get that one, the range actually drops from 319 to 303 miles. And I think that the reason for that probably has to do with the 11.5 kilowatt charger. That version is probably right on the edge. The way they do the testing for EPA for fuel economy and range and everything, they have test weight classes. It's usually like 100 mile or 100 pound or 100 to somewhere between 100 and 150 pound intervals. And they use that for setting up the dyno for doing the testing. And so the base version is probably right at the edge of its test weight class. And that 19 kilowatt charger is probably going to be a little bit heavier. And I think that when you order that, they also bundle it with some other options. So it probably bumps it up into the next test weight class, which is why, even though it's got the same batteries, same motors and everything, the range actually drops down by 16 miles. It's 303 miles. It's going to be fine, for almost everybody's use. It will charge on DC fast charging at up to about 190 kilowatts. I have a 9 kilowatt charger at home. It easily, charged overnight. I never drained it down completely. The official, let's see, let me go back to the Monroney here. The official rated range for the one I had is 303 miles, which with 102 kilowatt hour battery is about 3 miles per kilowatt hour, roughly, or just under 3 miles per kilowatt hour. During the time I had this Lyriq, the temperatures were in the low teens to single digits most of the time. There was frequently snow on the road. So I was using the heat. When you're driving in snow, you're going to get a lot more rolling resistance. And so with the heat on and everything, it averaged about between 2.1 and 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour, which means about 210 to 220 miles of range in these conditions, which is kind of, worst case conditions for driving an EV.
Yeah.
So, like I said, even with 200 miles in these worst case conditions, almost everybody's going to be able to handle whatever their daily driving needs are. These conditions also meant that from time to time, things like sensors got obscured. And so there were a couple of times when, driving through a snowstorm, the Super Cruise said, "Sorry, can't do anything right now. Your sensor's a little bit too covered up with snow and ice." And there's only so much you can do with that. But other times, Super Cruise worked great, as it always does. Keeps the car centered in the lane. The Lyriq is very roomy. It's a 2-row, 5-passenger. It's quite roomy. The seats on the non-V versions of the Lyriq, like a lot of GM's other cars, are a little flatter than I would like. I generally like to have a little bit more lateral support in the seats, but GM seats tend to be a little broader.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not skinny by any stretch, but when even I am sliding around in the seat a little bit, that that's a sign that it's maybe a little bit too flat. But other than that, it's I really like driving this car. It's still, even though this is a 2026, and because the Lyriq was launched before GM made their decision to drop smartphone projection from their EVs, It still has that. It had that. It still has that. They have not removed it from the Lyriq. So the Lyriq is the only current GM EV that you can use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with. For navigation, I use the built-in Google Maps. But if I'm for whatever reason on GM's vehicles with their Google built-in system, we use YouTube Music. We don't use Spotify in this household because we've got a subscription for YouTube Premium that comes with it. Because we don't want to watch ads on YouTube because they're terrible. So we use YouTube Music, and for some reason, the YouTube Music app, when I download that on a GM vehicle with Google built-in, doesn't work. I don't know why. I've let GM know about this. It's been like this for quite a while.
That's
it works
weird.
on other vehicles that have the same system. Does not work on the GM vehicles. So, if anybody from GM's listening, letting you know, reach out, talk to your contacts at Google, figure this out. It should. You would think YouTube, which is owned by Google, would work on a Google built-in system. Does not.
Doesn't seem intuitive. That seems like a weird glitch. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, everything else, we've driven the Lyriq multiple times over the last 4 years. And I still really like this vehicle. It would have been nice, if GM had provided some frunk space in this thing, because the way the car's shaped, it's got, kind of a traditional profile, fairly long hood. And when you lift the hood and you take off the cover over the front motor, even with the front motor there, on the all-wheel drive versions, and especially on the rear drive versions where there is no front motor, there's a lot of empty space there. They could have put a frunk there. They opted not to.
I wish
Not
they
sure
would
why.
do the front. Some of them, there's a couple of different OEMs who don't do frunks or vehicles. And I'm like, why? You've got a spot there. Put it there.
Well, on some, like say, on the Nissans, the Aria and the Leaf, those are configured primarily, by default as front-wheel drive vehicles. So they always have a front motor, and they've got all the electronics and everything stacked up there. So they don't actually have a lot of available space.
True.
To
Some,
do that.
Yes.
And then the optional is to add the rear motor. On the GM, on the Lyriq and the Blazer and the Equinox EV and on those are default rear drive. And even on the all-wheel drive versions with a front motor, the electronics are still mostly at the back end of the car. So their excuses for not doing a frunk, don't make a lot of sense. I know I've heard from a lot of engineers and product planners that, they've found that most people don't actually use the frunk. And I think in most of the cases where people don't use the frunk, it's because they've configured it in such a way, like, for example, on the Mustang Mach-E, where they don't put a button on the key fob to open the frunk from outside the car. So it's not very convenient because you actually have to reach inside the car just like you would to open the hood on an internal combustion vehicle to get to the frunk. And if you've got stuff, if you've got groceries or something and you want to drop them in the frunk, it's inconvenient to do that. But on other cars that have a button on the key fob, then it's so much easier to just do that. Just use that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So anyway, the Lyriq, this one was pretty well loaded up for the sport trim. It's the signature sport, so it has the optional 22-inch wheels. It's got all-season tires, Super Cruise with 3-year subscription included. The high-end AKG 23-speaker audio system, which sounds good. All the stuff. Nice leather interior. Grand total $78,200.
Wow.
Not inexpensive.
Not inexpensive at all.
Yeah, because some of the options, the base price on the Signature Sport, $68,300. So almost $10,000 in options and stuff. This had the trailering package. Not sure how many people are going to tow a trailer with a Lyriq.
I wouldn't imagine very many,
but it also had the dual panel sunroof, which is $1,600. It's $1,480 for that 19.2 kilowatt AC charger. The paint, the vibrant white clear coat, which was kind of grungy white coat, was $1,225. $600 for the black roof option that was on this one. And then you want to guess at the destination charge?
$1,495.
You are spot on. Well, actually, you are spot on with what's on the Monroney.
Okay.
Because when I was checking on the Cadillac website the other day,
was it different there?
There is a slight difference between what was on the Monroney and if you went and bought one today, what you would get charged. And let me double check that. Let's see.
It's funny how often they change. How often it's like what we have.
Especially in this past year, we've talked about it, multiple times. So you want to guess what it is now?
$1,695.
$1,795.
Oh,
got up $300.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I thought maybe a couple hundred. Oof. $1,795. Wow.
So, if you're going to buy a car, buy it now before the destination charge goes up again.
Next week.
Yeah, who knows? $78,200 in total. The trailering package was $3,500. So I mean, there's stuff on this that you could probably get away with. Like,
right?
Do you need to spend $1,500 on the 19 kilowatt charger? No. Do you need to spend $3,500 on towing? No. So that's $5,000 right there.
Right.
That you could drop off the price of this thing. So that's the 2026 Cadillac Lyriq Signature Sport.
Okay.
All right. So as far as competitors to the Lyriq, there's a new one coming. It's the new Volvo EX60. That has, we've talked about it. Volvo's been teasing this out for a few weeks now, and they finally dropped all the information on the new EX60 this week. Excuse me.
You're going to make it, Sam?
Yeah, I'll make it. So let me find it here. Okay. So the EX60 is built on a new, what they're calling SPA3 architecture. So the EX90, the original, or the current generation XC90, XC60, the S60, V60, V90, S90, all those are built on the what they call the Scalable Product Architecture, SPA, the original one. That came out a decade ago. The EX90, which is all electric, and the Polestar 3 are built on SPA2, which was Volvo's first EV-only architecture. And that one had a 400-volt electrical system, 110-ish, 111 kilowatt-hour battery, and it's nice. It's a very good vehicles, but the EX90 they've stepped it up, and they've gone to a new SPA3 architecture, which now has an 800-volt architecture. And they've worked on everything on this thing. So they're claiming that with the charging on a 400 kilowatt charger, it will now add 340 kilometers or a little over 200 miles of range in 10 minutes from a 400 kilowatt charger.
Insane.
Yeah.
If those numbers hold once it gets, we have our hands on it sometime, see it. That would be really good.
And those specs are those are the global specs. Those are not the US specs.
And things always change a little bit. It's just the nature of how vehicles are made and the testing and requirements. So it could be a little bit off. It's not really significantly different, but it'll be different.
So the range numbers. Hold on.
Because this says what I'm looking at is up to, depending on which one you get, 810 kilometers of range, which is about 500 miles.
Yeah, so that's for the rear-wheel drive
Right.
version.
So that's the best. Like that's
Yeah.
the best numbers that you will get. But you can also get there's an all-wheel drive version that has 660 kilometers, and then a different version of the rear wheel at 620 kilometers. So you can get a range, but you can get it up to 810. That's pretty cool. Like I feel like crossing roughly 500 miles of range, that does better than gas cars do, depending on the car, and that can get you, and how fast it charges. See, that's the thing that would make it easier for everyone. It needs to have enough range. You don't have to worry about charging it all the time, and it needs to charge up quickly. So if you have to top it off somewhere in the middle of a route, you're not stuck waiting forever in a day. That 10 minutes, that amount of charge range, that's not insignificant. That's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's a very big deal. So you've got the P6 electric, which is the base version. That's rear-wheel drive, single motor. Then there's the P10 all-wheel drive. So the P6, you get 374 horsepower, or 369 horsepower. Sorry. The P10, you get 503 horsepower. So you're talking similar levels of performance to the Lyriq, and then the P12, 671 horsepower with that one, and 0 to 60 in about 3.9 seconds with that P12. But even the P6 rear drive, you're looking at 5.9 seconds, 0 to 60, which is that's more than adequate.
Plenty adequate.
Yeah. And then the battery in the P6, you get 83 kilowatt hours, 95 in the P10, 117 in the P12, and some, like you say, some serious charging capabilities from these things. It's also got bidirectional charging, so you can do vehicle to home or power export from any of your devices. And then, overall, I think it looks really good. But I do have a couple of issues with it.
Yes. What are your couple of issues?
Guess what the first one is?
I don't know. What's the first one? Share with us. Do tell, Sam.
There's nowhere to grab the vents and adjust them.
Oh, shakes fist at sky. Oh.
Come on, Volvo.
I hate this idea.
I know, it is so dumb.
Why do they insist on doing this? I don't get it. I don't get it. Don't get it.
I don't either.
Nobody likes this. Like nobody likes it when they do that. Not a single human likes it when they do that. And yet they're like, oh, we're going. See, that literally is one of the stupid things that's a deal breaker for me buying a car. Like I literally would, like, it used to be Mazda's little rotary dial thing was enough to make me reconsider a Mazda and the lack of touchscreen in a Mazda. Now my new battle cry is going to be vents that you can't actually just reach out and grab and change.
Yeah, and Volvo is a brand that built its reputation on safety. These are the people that invented the 3-point seatbelt. And when they invented that back in the 1950s, they didn't, they made it public domain. They said anybody can use this idea. We're not gonna control a patent. We're not gonna force anybody to pay any license fees. Anybody can do it. And it still took several decades before most other automakers adopted them, but they do it. And on the EX60, they have these multi-adaptive seatbelts that adapt for each passenger position to provide optimal protection. This thing, their structures are really good, but then they do things like the touchscreen controls for the vents, which means that you're looking away from the road. You got to screw around with the touchscreen to figure out where you want the air to blow. And then there's the door handles, or the absence of door handles. On this car.
It's like, so on the outside, it's just like a little, I don't know, tab. It looks like a tab. It makes me think of a file tab, like in an old school file, stick in a filing cabinet. And that tab, it's like a sensor-based door handle. So it's like they call like a wing kind of, and it's at the top of the doors, and you use that to open the doors, and it's more aerodynamic. But so are handles that pop into the door. I don't know that I like those any better, but it's kind of they're kind of weird. Like I don't know. Do we need those? Could we not just do a handle?
Apparently, I mean, designers don't like handles.
They do not. Handles add bumpy bits to the car and make the
Yeah.
smooth, beautiful lines that they work very hard to create not smooth and not beautiful. But I think we're used to them being in a car at this point. It's not that we look at it and go, oh my gosh, the car has this like bulgy thing. What is that? No, it's a handle. Like, we know we need to get in somehow. I mean, it does look kind of cool, but you just wonder about I always wonder about the everyday versatility. Like, you got to grab that and you got to, then it realizes you're there and it opens up and they can't do retractable handles. Well, you could, but they've banned them in China. You can't do the retractable door handles.
And there's also a bill in the Congress, which who knows if it'll ever get passed. But, the Safe Exit Act would limit electronic-only door handles. You'd have to have mechanical latches available as well, easily accessible mechanical latches.
And it's funny, even I look in cars that have the electronic release, and sometimes you can see where the manual release is. Like, you take a second and you sort of lean back. You're like, oh, there it is when you're inside the car. And some of them, you don't see them right away. I always think, and even some of them where I know where they are, you look and you're like, okay, if I was in a panic because I was in a car accident, I desperately needed to get out of the car, and I'm just pawing at the door, would I remember that what I need to do is reach down there and because it's always out of the way slightly, so it's not as visible. Handles, much like vents, handles work. Are they, wheels work? We haven't reinvented that yet. Please don't anybody do anything with those. Wheels work.
Although, they have sort of tried to reinvent the wheel by making them bigger and bigger and bigger and having less and less rubber.
Yes, that's true. But at least it's still a wheel. Like, if suddenly they come out,
it's still round. It's still circular.
Somehow it's some random weird triangle shaped thing, I quit.
So the EX60 initially is going to be produced in Sweden, and it's using what they're calling cell to body architecture for the battery. So there's no separate battery enclosure. What you have is the floor of the car, in this case, will have an indentation. When they make the body, when they weld the body together, it's going to be an indentation in the floor. And they will take the block of cells that they have glued together, put that in there, and then just put a cooling plate and a bottom plate on there. And so you don't have a whole separate battery case that comes out. So that, again, is going to reduce cost, reduce weight. It's got next generation electric motors, and they're also using large scale die casting to help reduce weight and complexity of the body structure. So that's a concept that obviously Tesla pioneered, and I think it's a good concept. Now that they've figured out how to actually repair those things in the event of a crash or damage, it's a concept that can help reduce manufacturing complexity. And so Volvo's adopting all of that stuff on the EX60. They have previously said that they were going to build the EX60 in Charleston as well, although in the announcements that came out this week, there was no mention of building it in Charleston. So my guess is that right now, given what's happened with EV sales, kind of flattening out, they're probably going to just build them in Gothenburg and export them from there until they see volumes start to go up, and then maybe add production in Charleston.
It'd be interesting to see.
Or perhaps Geely will decide to build something else in Charleston, because Volvo is owned by Geely Group in China,
right?
And Geely's got a bunch of other brands too.
They could build anything.
Maybe we could get some Zeekers or something built in Charleston.
It could. that China market's going to change at some point soon. It's not
Yeah.
going to stay the way it is forever. Definitely not.
Okay. Anything else about the EX60 that you want to comment on?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. All right. One other thing about the design, the interior
Yes.
design. It does have they changed the infotainment layout, because Volvo's, for the last decade, their infotainment was always a portrait style screen, and this one goes to a landscape style design.
So that's a change.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What do we have next? Oh, Tesla. Remember their robotaxis running around Austin? They had about 20 of them. They had no safety driver in there, but what they did have was a safety observer in the front passenger seat with their finger hovering over the stop switch on the screen, just in case anything goes wrong. The safety monitors.
Letter of the law. He's there. Was he correct? Yes. Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Apparently some of the robotaxis, which are just, they're standard Tesla Model Ys that are driving around Austin, they have now taken the safety monitor out of the car so people can drive around without anybody else in the car. Sort of. Because what they're doing instead is they have the safety monitor sitting in another Tesla right behind, following everywhere they go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's
Well-
I guess it's good. I guess it's good that they're like, okay, we've launched it, but we're going to have spotters just in case. I guess that way, if there is a problem.
Yeah,
right,
I'd
here's
rather
the good
have
thing. You'd
I'd
have
rather have
someone
somebody
right there.
watching and ready
Right?
to take over.
Because you think about the number of times that companies, like, who was it that just had was it Waymo? They had all their vehicles kind of got stuck in one section. Like, they all sort of were like, didn't know what to do. It would have been nice to have a human somewhere going, okay, back up, to fix it.
And they have a system like that. They have a, remote assistance system.
Yeah.
The problem was, that situation with Waymo during this power outage in San Francisco, it also knocked out communications. So, like, the cell towers were out. And so there was no way for the remote assist people to actually communicate with the vehicles and tell them what to do.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There's still flaws in the ointment with this whole thing. It's not gonna. It's not perfect yet.
There's still some sand in the gears.
Yes.
So So if you happen to be in Austin and ride around in a Tesla robotaxi that doesn't have a safety monitor inside, take a look out the back window and see if there's another Tesla following close behind you.
I'd be curious if anybody does that, or if they see one.
There's videos showing these being followed by somebody else.
I just find that kind of funny. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I find it kind of funny.
No, and in fact, it's not the first time that this has been done. Nuro, who started off, they're a company that was started by some former Waymo engineers, and they're working with Lucid now. But when Nuro started, they were developing a delivery vehicle, an autonomous delivery vehicle. And it was purpose-built, so it had nowhere for anyone to sit in it. They had 3 iterations of it, the R1, the R2, and the R3. And they were doing deliveries in partnership with some grocery stores. And because they had to have, a safety monitor, a safety driver or equivalent, and there was nowhere for someone to sit in this vehicle because it's not designed to carry passengers. It's only designed to carry small amounts of cargo. They did the same thing. They had engineers following behind in another car, in fact, in a Toyota Prius, following the delivery vehicles, and watching, looking at the signals from the cameras and, looking around. And if there was any issue, they could intervene from the following vehicle. So that's what they did. So it's, what Tesla's doing now is basically the same idea. Also, Tesla made some changes in their option lineup and their feature lineup this week on their vehicles. So they announced last week that they were no longer going to sell full self-driving or FSD as a one-time purchase option. So ever since they launched FSD, I think in about 2016 or 17, and launched that as a separate option on top of enhanced autopilot, the price varied wildly over time. It started off at about $5,000, eventually reached as high as $15,000, and most recently was selling for $8,000. So that was $8,000 for the lifetime of the vehicle, for full self-driving. They no longer are selling that as a standalone one-time purchase option. Now you can only get it as a subscription, which, they started offering FSD as a subscription several years back. And that was, I think when they launched that as a subscription, it was $199 a month. It's now $99 a month, I think.
Yes, $99 a month.
$99 a month to subscribe to FSD. And, there's a couple of advantages to that, for Tesla, at least. They get recurring revenue that they can book on their earnings reports. And also, when they were selling it as a one-time purchase, because it wasn't delivering all of the things that were promised, they couldn't, they could book it as money coming in, but they couldn't book it as revenue. It had to be booked, the way accounting works, had to be booked as deferred revenue. And so they could only account for that in their profit and loss as they released features to customers. So, that $8,000 went into their bank account, but it didn't count on their bottom line for revenue and profits. Now, as a subscription feature, the accounting rules are different, and so they can book that as profit right from day one, which, Tesla's had a long history of somewhat dubious accounting practices. But
and I was thinking about that. I just crunched it. So at $99 a month, it would take you just not quite 7 years to get to the point where you had spent the same as if it was that $8,000 that it's been its lowest price as of late.
Yeah.
So it's not that crazy, actually. Like,
No,
it's
I mean,
$99 a month, but it's not really that crazy when you think about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, if it actually delivered on everything that it promises, it would not be an insane amount of money to spend. And the thing is, in a lot of situations, maybe you don't need that capability, for your daily driving. Maybe you only want it, in the summertime when you're taking road trips with your family. For a long trip, you want to use that. And then so you can sign up, and then you can drop it, kind of like with your streaming services and other subscription services. The other thing that Tesla did this week is, again, ever since 2016, when they launched Autopilot version 2, after they got ditched by Mobileye, they have had all of the cameras and everything for Autopilot installed on 100% of their vehicles. And basic Autopilot was included in the base price of the car. So what that meant was you got adaptive cruise control and lane centering, which Tesla called auto steer capability, as standard on all their cars. And then if you wanted other features like automatic lane changing and their summon and assorted other capabilities that they had, those you'd pay extra. You would have to step up to either the enhanced Autopilot feature or to FSD to get that. And the mix of which of those packages those features were included in has changed over time. But as of this past week, auto steer is no longer available on base Teslas. Autopilot is no longer included. What you get when you buy a Tesla now is adaptive cruise control. That's it. All the other features and capabilities that were once part of Autopilot are now included in FSD. So if you want auto steer, you have to step up to that $99 a month. So if you want something, that's roughly equivalent to Super Cruise, for driving on the highway, $99 a month, right from the day you buy the car. So they're probably going to see
that.
They're probably going to see more adoption of that than they were getting for FSD when it was $199.
I think so, and it's going to encourage people to do it, which is not a bad thing also because it gets people, as people use it, it looks good for their bottom line, the numbers, yada, yada, but it also gives them data about to improve it faster. You know, if they have more data about what's happening, it's given a little more information. If 80% of their customer base is using it instead of 50% or whatever.
Except 100% of the customer base had it before.
Yeah, but this will get.
But they weren't paying. They weren't paying a monthly for it.
Right, but this will get. But I'm saying in terms of Tesla, they get more than they got. They have to pay for it, but they're getting more than just those features. They're getting the full self-driving features too. So, and Tesla gets more data because more people are using full self-driving, theoretically.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. But basically, it means that you're gonna. If you want the features that you would get on a Tesla 2 weeks ago, now it's going to cost you more.
It is going to cost you more,
and you are going to pay in perpetuity for the same features that you got for the base price 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And also those are features like lane centering that are increasingly common, as standard equipment on everything out there.
This is true, but you get more. I mean, you get more than just the features that they gave you for free before. It's like, we gave you this little piece for free. Now we're making you pay for that piece, but you get extra stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not just like you get those same features. You get a little bit more than if for the free stuff was.
All right, let's move on. So the Trump administration's trade policies have had a variety of effects over the past year. We've seen a bunch of announcements from multiple automakers about shifting production, where they're going to build various vehicles. And among those was GM, who last fall, or maybe it was summer, announced that they were going to shift the production of a bunch of vehicles, move the final assembly of a bunch of models into plants in the U.S., including the Fairfax, Kansas assembly plant, which had previously been building the Chevy Malibu, is now starting to build the new Bolt, the updated Bolt. They last fall announced that they were going to move production of the gas-engined Chevy Equinox from Mexico to Fairfax. And this past week, they also acknowledged that for the next generation Buick Envision, which is Buick's midsize crossover, they're also going to move that to Fairfax. So it's probably going to be built on the same platform as the Equinox. That vehicle, the Envision, it's now in its second or third generation? Second generation, I think.
I think second.
Yeah. So the first two generations have all been built in China. It has previously been exclusively imported from China. That will no longer be the case starting in 2028. When the next generation Envision comes out, it's going to be built in Fairfax instead of in China.
And it is second generation right now. You're right. It is the second. It's this moment. Yep.
Yeah.
So it'll be coming to the U.S.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ford makes a change with the Lincoln Nautilus, because the Nautilus currently is only produced in China and imported from China into the U.S. And I don't know if they're gonna. We'll see if they bring that production back to North America.
They might, if they have a way to do it, and they have, they can make it work with the rest of their lineup. Why not at this point? Bring it back.
Yeah.
Bring it into the U.S. market again.
Another one of the policy changes from the administration has been effectively saying, yeah, we're not going to enforce any emissions or fuel economy standards anymore. We're not going to fine anybody for violating those standards. So just build whatever you want. And the most recent thing is that they announced they are no longer going to go after people that delete diesel emissions systems from trucks and SUVs. That previously, under the prior administration, if you did that, you could be charged with a criminal offense. that will no longer be the case going forward. They will no longer charge anybody for rolling coal or removing diesel emissions devices from vehicles.
I can't say I'm especially surprised.
Yeah.
And people were going to do it whether it was legal or not. People do it all the time. So it's,
but there have been a number
like
of fairly high-profile cases in the last few years where
there have
where shops that do this for a living have been charged, faced criminal charges and gotten huge fines and even jail time for removing those devices, and that will no longer be the case.
Okay, more rolling coal, I guess. I don't know. I wonder how much it's actually going to change stuff. The possibility of people being prosecuted, sure, you might find more like shops willing to do it. Obviously, if you can remove it and it's not prosecuted. I wonder if it's actually going to. I feel like the guys who wanted to do that were already doing that.
Yeah.
It's not going to change how many vehicles do it by that much, I bet.
Probably not, but there will probably be some additional ones, but
right, like a small number, because the people who wanted to do that probably like, heck with it, I'm doing it whether they want me to or not.
Yeah. So earlier we talked about the Prius, and the Prius has an interesting transmission design. They call it an eCVT. Toyota was the first to do it. Ford does it. Other manufacturers have done a similar design. And one of the things you mentioned was Toyota's hybrids. When you're accelerating hard, they tend to rev up to about 4,000 RPM or so to their peak power RPM, and then the engine just sits there droning until the vehicle speed catches up. And on the new Prius, it's not quite as noticeable as it has been in the past, because I think they put some extra sound deadening in there. But it still works basically the same way. And so Jason Fenske at Engineering Explained published a really good video this week where he actually explains how these things work. And I've talked about it a little bit in the past. Basically, these eCVT systems, they have a planetary gear set, which is the same kind of thing that you find in almost all conventional automatic transmissions. You've had them for close to 100 years in automatic transmissions. So, planetary gear set consists of three main components. You have a ring gear, which is the external part, which has teeth around the inside of the ring. In the middle, there's what they call a sun gear, which looks like a conventional gear. It has teeth around the outside. And then in between, there's a planet carrier with some smaller gears that connect the ring gear and the sun gear together. When you were a kid, did you ever play with Spirograph?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was such a fun game or fun toy.
So, it's a similar concept to that. Spirograph is basically the same idea of gears of different sizes, some internal gears, some external gears. You stick a pen in the little round disc and you go around and the pen moves, as the thing rotates. Well, a planetary gear set works that way, but in order for a planetary gear to actually transmit power from one side to the other, one of those three elements has to be held steady. So you either have to hold the ring gear, the sun gear, or the planet carrier, and then the other two elements move. And depending on which ones you hold, they call it grounding. Depending on which ones you ground, you're going to get different gear ratios. But there's only three possible gear ratios from any one planetary gear set, generally, because whichever part you ground is going to stay steady. Well, eCVTs are a little different because what they actually have is a variable ground. Instead of having a clutch that holds one of those three elements to the transmission case, and that's what you find in automatic transmissions, they use an electric motor to vary how much that element that you're grounding can actually move. So it can either be held rock solid or it can be allowed to move some amount, and that changes the gear ratio. And so Jason has got this really cool model that he borrowed from someplace that does training for technicians on how these things work. And he walks through and he shows you all this stuff. It's a really cool video.
That's cool.
It's always worth watching Jason's videos. He does great videos explaining all this stuff. He's an engineer by training, but he's really good at explaining all of these things. And and what they do. So definitely highly recommend the Engineering Explained channel on YouTube, and especially this ECVT video that he just published.
Yeah, very cool. It's neat. He does a good job of explaining in such a way that you don't have to be an engineer to understand him,
Yeah,
which is what makes it interesting. So,
and very visual.
mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, in Mexico. Well, I mean, last week we talked about the trade deal that Canada signed with China to allow some number of low-cost Chinese EVs into Canada, and how that is very likely to be the first step in a process that leads to Chinese brand vehicles being assembled in Canada. But Automotive News had a story this week on some of the progress that Chinese automakers are having in Mexico, because they've been in Mexico for quite a few years now. In Mexico, Chinese EVs now account, or Chinese brand vehicles now account for 20% of sales in Mexico.
That's a lot.
Which is huge. I mean, Mexico has traditionally been a market that bought a lot of GM, Ford, and Stellantis / FCA / Chrysler brand vehicles. That is changing rapidly. EVs or plug-in vehicles accounted for 9% of new vehicle sales in Mexico last year, almost all of which are Chinese, vast majority of which are Chinese, and BYD was 70% of those. And then Chinese brand vehicles overall are about 20% of the Chinese market last year, up from like low single digits in 2020.
Yeah, it's, we don't have them in the U.S., but they are knocking right there at our door, really, truly. And it's not going to be long before all it takes for them to be here is one change in the administration, and we could have EVs, Chinese vehicles in the country. Really, that's all it takes at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because it's not just like they'll have to come to North America. They'll already be here. They just won't be in the U.S. So it'll just be like over the border. It's not like they have to find ways and distribution and how do we get them there and where do we make them. Nope, we're going to make them right here. We're good. We're already inundating both sides of us. So when that gate is finally lifted, we're going to have a ton of Chinese vehicles.
Yeah, and with trade policies, with the administration saying, we don't care about USMCA anymore. We don't need a trade deal with Canada. We don't need products from Canada or from Mexico anymore. Those the governments in Canada and Mexico, they're going to want stuff made in those countries, and they will inevitably do deals with Chinese companies to set up factories, just as we saw here in the 1980s. When there was pushback against Japan, we saw all the Japanese automakers set up plants here and build vehicles here. If the administration is forcing Ford, GM, and Stellantis to pull production out of Canada and Mexico and put it in the U.S., well, those facilities are going to be available, and it's only a matter of time before somebody steps up and starts building something there. And then as I mentioned, Geely, which owns Volvo and Polestar, they have a factory in South Carolina. And I would not be surprised if they start building some other vehicles there at some point. Some non-Volvo, non-Polestar branded vehicles there. And then there's also the former GM plant in Lordstown, Ohio, that was once going to be home to Lordstown Motors. Poof. Is now currently owned by Foxconn, a Taiwanese company, but they do a lot of business in China. And they're looking for customers to build vehicles for in Ohio. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see those vehicles built and sold here as well.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen when it does finally happen. It's going to happen very quickly.
Yeah, and and that's going to be a problem for the U.S. automakers because they're going to have products that compete. They can't rest on their laurels of selling big trucks and SUVs forever.
Yeah.
'Cause
At some
people,
point, they've got to change. And it's always
the-
interesting to me. I think they had a chance. I know all these things take a very long time to happen. It's not an industry that you can move things super quickly. But you would think they would be taking this opportunity to really try to do that. You don't really see it.
yeah, I think, one of the few, potentials, that seems to be trying to compete with that is what Ford is doing with their universal EV platform.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be more news coming out on that in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if they can actually execute on their plans. Ford has said a lot of the right things. The question is, can they actually pull it off? That's where
the bigger
Ford has
question.
sometimes
Are they
struggled.
going to get it to happen? Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Speaking of affordable vehicles, Subaru is also making some adjustments in the lineup for the WRX for 2026. They have, previously, for the last couple of years at least, the lowest cost version of the WRX was the WRX Premium. And I think that's actually the case for most of their models. The premium has been the base model, which
Right, which
always
is
seemed a
so
little odd.
confusing. You're like, premium? Wait, no, that's not the best. No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, now there is just for 2026 model year, there is just a base WRX available again. And it has a starting price of $32,495, not including destination charge, which is not bad for that vehicle. I mean,
Not bad at all.
it's not entirely clear what content they've removed, and they have undoubtedly removed some content, but it seems like most of the most important stuff is still there. You still get the same 271 horsepower 4-cylinder boxer. Still get standard all-wheel drive. Still have
looks like a WRX. It has that very distinctive look to it, so it looks fabulous.
Yeah. You still get the same infotainment system with CarPlay and Android Auto, and EyeSight. Their EyeSight driver assist system is still there. So this looks like a pretty reasonable deal. Especially for something that is standard all-wheel drive. That's $1,500 less than the WRX Premium, and that's with a 6-speed manual transmission.
I think it's a good deal. I think people are going to be excited about it. It's such a fun car. It's always been a fun car. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, when I had that WRX TS a month or two ago, I mean, that thing was a blast. I really had fun with that.
You can really enjoy it. And it's not so harsh that you can only enjoy it for 5 minutes.
There's also a new sunrise yellow exterior available.
Ooh, is that like a blinding yellow?
Probably, yes.
Like, I imagine that's going to be like you need to put on your sunglasses before you walk out to your car, even if it's the middle of the night.
Yeah. But I want more bold colors. So, if you buy a new WRX, definitely consider getting the sunrise yellow.
Yeah. Get a bright color, people. Don't get black. Don't get white. Don't get gray.
All right. Rivian. They have promised that the R2, their new midsize model, is going to be out by the middle of this year. And last week they got their first, what they're referring to as manufacturing validation build vehicles. So these, this is what's typically known as, pilot production vehicle. Well, not even pilot production, but pre-production. Pilot production vehicles are usually built in a separate facility, a separate line, to work out some of the manufacturing processes. These are vehicles actually built on the actual assembly line in Illinois, where they did a big expansion last year to accommodate the R2, and they are currently driving these across the country, taking a road trip across Route 66 with the first couple of these MVB R2s that they've talked about.
Which is super fun because it's the 100th anniversary of Route 66. So I think that's kind of cool that they chose to do that. That's neat. Yeah.
So, really looking forward to finally driving this thing later this year.
Me too.
This is going to be interesting.
It's a big deal for them because they have an SUV, but it's large. And if you don't want that large vehicle, this is the sweet spot. This R2, this is going to be
Yeah, it's
They've got to
two-row.
nail this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people are excited about the R3, which is even smaller. And actually, I think if I was going to buy one, it would actually probably be the R3 rather than the R2. But I think
Would
the
it?
R2
Yeah.
is yeah. I mean, I don't have a need for that much size.
I would buy the R2
we're
because
empty
then I can
nesters.
say, I just get to say R2 like a Star Wars nerd. I'm taking
Oh, okay, that is
R2.
true.
Right?
And as I'm looking at you on the screen here, you've got a Star Wars blanket draped across the back of
I
your
do,
chair. So
because it's cold, and that's my Star Wars blanket on the back of my chair that I take out when I'm working and I'm freezing cold.
yeah. So I know you are a Star Wars nerd.
So I would pick the R2 just for the name. I'd
Okay,
have to get some
fair
kind
enough.
of Star Warsy license vanity plate to go with it.
But there is that problem.
Hmm?
The vents.
Oh, it does do the vent thing.
Yeah, it's in the touchscreen.
I forgot about that.
But maybe not forever. Because there was a new patent issued by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office
Yes.
to Rivian.
Yes.
I'm not really sure why they granted this patent. Because I mean,
Just for
I
vent
found the
controls?
actual patent and read through it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about this that is particularly innovative. But essentially, the core of the patent is that it has a powered tailgate with separate glass. So the glass can open up separately. The rear glass can open up separately from the rest of the tailgate.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Although, it's been done once or twice or a million
I was
times
going to say,
before.
how is that? What is different about the way they did it? I don't know.
Nothing that
Yeah.
I could find in the patent.
Like, okay, you patented a thing that everyone knows how to do already.
Yeah. But, and again, the other thing that's in the patent that not particularly innovative, but is interesting from the perspective of Rivian, because Rivian, on all their vehicles to date, including what they've shown us with the R2 and the upcoming R3, they basically eschew all the physical controls and do everything through the touchscreen. The only real physical controls being on the steering wheel. You've got the little switches and the rockers and rollers on the steering wheel spokes. There is one of figure 13 in the patent. If you can go through and find the patent.
I see figure 13.
Yeah, describes having switches and knobs and buttons as a potential mechanism for controlling that tailgate. So the patent is about the tailgate with the separate glass, but
Not for
they say
nothing.
it can be controlled through a
does that
touchscreen.
sketch actually have 3 pedals like it's a manual transmission?
It does. It does have 3,
I just
but
caught
it's
that.
kind of
There's
odd
3.
because usually.
What is going on with those pedals?
Yeah, well, maybe they're going back to the Model T thing, because the Model T had a weird pedal arrangement. So looking at this sketch, it's got a small vertical pedal for where you would expect the accelerator to be,
Mhm.
and then there's a small sort of squarish pedal,
Brake pedal?
in the middle, which looks like what a clutch pedal typically looks like, and then you have a long vertical pedal on the left, which looks like what a traditional accelerator pedal would look like, and you don't have anything that looks like the long, the wide brake pedal that you typically
That
have.
is this, and I know that's not even what they're patenting, but I'm just looking at the sketch and I'm like, what's happening over there? What is going on?
Yeah, but the key in the patent, in reading the text of the patent, is they talk about several mechanisms to control the power tailgate and the separate glass enclosure for the separate glass for the tailgate. So it could be done through touchscreen, but they also describe you could also do it through physical controls. And since Rivian traditionally doesn't talk about that, I didn't have time to go back and find any previous patents for any of this stuff to see if they've talked about it in the past. It could be, this could amount to nothing. Rivian may not actually do this, and it could be just a matter of trying to get protection to prevent anybody else from having a button to open your tailgate, because that's never been done before. But just the fact that they're mentioning it, maybe a sign that they're at least considering it.
Maybe.
So hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to just hold out hope then. Maybe this will happen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then finally, how much would you pay for a 1991? 1991 Toyota pickup. So back in 1991, Toyota was not yet calling their pickup truck the Tacoma. The Tacoma name didn't come until later in the 90s. So this is in 91. It was still just called the Toyota pickup. How much would you pay for a 35-year-old Toyota pickup?
Not a lot. I don't know. It wouldn't be a lot.
This one looks to be in really nice shape.
Okay.
It only has just shy of 70,000 miles on it.
Not too bad.
Yeah, and for a 35-year-old Toyota pickup, and keep in mind that if you can find a 35-year-old Toyota pickup or a Nissan or Datsun pickup from that era, there's a strong probability that much of the steel has turned into iron oxide. And this one does not appear to have any notable amount of iron oxide.
Mm-hmm.
But Vanguard Motors, which is here in Michigan, where are they? They're somewhere here in southeast Michigan because it's a 248 area code. They're in Plymouth. So these guys are like about 15 miles away from me.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I should go over and take a look at this thing.
Maybe you should go look.
Yeah. But they've got a 91 Toyota pickup, under 70,000 miles on it, that they're asking $69,900 for.
No, what is it? What about this? I'm trying to figure out what makes this so special. What am I missing? Is there a thing in here? Is there like a gold-plated? No, it just looks, it's beautiful. I mean, it looks absolutely in great condition, but why? Why?
I have no idea.
I mean, it's got really pretty, the paint looks beautiful. The interior looks beautiful. The seat, like everything looks really good. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's a standard cab, 4-wheel drive. Looks to be a little bit lifted. I said, it's probably the only Toyota pickup of that era that has no apparent rust on it. According to this article from The Drive, they looked up and Bring a Trailer. Only 2 other examples of similarly aged Toyota pickups sold recently have gotten above $50,000 at auction, which even $50,000 for a pickup this old, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot. I mean, it's gorgeous. I just clicked on the link to see the full listing. I don't see anything amazing about this. I mean, other than like it looks cool. It doesn't look 70 grand cool, but it does look cool. I'm perplexed by the reasoning behind this. Let's see if they sell it for $70,000. That's the real question.
I think I'll have to take a drive over there and
go ogle
and
it.
just ask why. Why are you asking $70,000 for this truck?
Like, what warrants that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they've done anything with the engine. It's just a stock 2.2 liter 4-cylinder. It's 5-speed manual. It's kind of nuts.
It's a lot nuts.
Yeah. It does. Let's see. It does have a front skid plate, and an exhaust system with a new tailpipe. Let's see. Yeah. It's in good shape, but wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot. I don't know. I will have to see. You've got to go take a look and see if it looks as cool, or see if you can figure out why. Like, guys, why are you selling this for $70K? Maybe the secret will be out. We're selling it for $70K because, and then it'll all make sense.
Maybe. Probably not.
Probably not, but we could always try and see what you can figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, just try. I mean, other trucks are so expensive these days. I mean, a Tacoma TRD Pro, a brand new Tacoma TRD Pro, is going to cost you about this much money anyway. It's about $68,000, or a Trail Hunter, and this looks nice, but I don't know that I'd spend this kind of money on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's probably only about 140 horsepower, 150 horsepower.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't spend this much money.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's call it a show.
Let's call it a show, and hopefully next week we'll have Robbie back.
Yeah, hopefully
he'll be feeling better.
Feels better. Hopefully his migraine subsides, and
hopefully I don't get buried in snow. Like I can actually get out and I can communicate. I'm not just covered in snow and lost forever after a snowstorm here.
Yeah, hopefully Russ doesn't mess up his back trying to shovel you guys out.
Or he has a snowblower. What are you think we're amateurs? We've had a snowblower. The first thing we bought when we moved into this house.
Yeah, I know.
All right, everyone.
All right,
have a
bye.
great week, guys. Bye.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.